Welcome to Hebraic Insights in the Gospels. Join us every Sabbath on Zion Road Radio for a look at the life, deeds, and words of Yeshua Messiah and his followers from the Torah-centric Hebraic perspective they were originally lived and written in.
Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is, and walk in it. And you find rest for your souls. You find rest for your souls. Oh, you find rest for your souls when you walk in his ways.
Today's program is about Mark chapter 2, verse 23 through chapter 3, verse 12. In today's program, we pick up where we left off in last week's program, talking about the authority that Yeshua modeled for us as the Son of Man. We want to look now at the example Yeshua set for us and how he approached the Sabbath. But first, here's some questions to ponder during today's program. What did Messiah mean when he said, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath"? What is the Sabbath about? Is it about a bunch of rules? Is it a restriction put on us by Yahweh? Or is it a gift given to us by Yahweh for a specific purpose? If so, what is the purpose of the Sabbath, and why should we keep it? What is the bigger truth the answer to these questions points us to? And what was Messiah showing us about what it means to be a son or daughter of man? Stay tuned through to the end of today's program for insight from Eliyahu ben David on these questions and more in Mark chapter 2, verse 23 through chapter 3, verse 12. And now, here's today's scripture portion. Mark chapter 2, verse 23 through chapter 3, verse 12. It happened that he, that is Yeshua, was going on the Sabbath day through the grain fields, and his disciples began as they went to pluck the ears of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Behold, why do they do that which is not legal to do on the Sabbath day?" He said to them, "Did you never read what David did when he had need and was hungry, he and those who were with him? How he entered into the house of Elohim when Abiathar was high priest, and ate the showbread, which is not legal to eat except for the priests, and gave also to those who were with him?" He said to them, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Therefore, the Son of Man is master even of the Sabbath." He entered again into the synagogue, and there was a man who had his hand withered. They watched him, whether he would heal him on the Sabbath day, that they might accuse him. He said to the man who had his hand withered, "Stand up." He said to them, "Is it legal on the Sabbath day to do good or to do harm? To save a life or to kill?" But they were silent, when he had looked around at them with anger, being grieved at the hardening of their hearts. He said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was restored as healthy as the other. The Pharisees went out and immediately conspired with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him. Yeshua withdrew to the sea with his disciples, and a great multitude followed him from Galilee, from Judea, from Jerusalem, from Idumea, beyond the Jordan, and those from around Tyre and Sidon. A great multitude, hearing what things he did, came to him. He spoke to his disciples, that a little boat should stay near him because of the crowd. For he had healed many, so that as many as had diseases pressed on him, that they might touch him. The unclean spirits, whenever they saw him, fell down before him and cried, "You are the Son of Elohim." He sternly warned them that they should not make him known. And now, here's Eliyahu ben David with insight on that portion.
Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is, and walk in it.
Shalom, friends. Great to have all of you with us. We are going to be looking more in the book of Mark, and we're looking at Yeshua as the Lord of the Sabbath. And I think we're going to enjoy this tonight, and perhaps we'll all be encouraged by the things we read that Yeshua did. You know, it's just something to think about, all those people following after Yeshua. What an amazing thing it must have been, especially in those times when they didn't have the kind of communications we do today. That word of him and everything he did spread to so many people, and they went out to see him, to be touched by him, to be changed by him. It's truly such an amazing report. You know, as I was listening on the end, we're reading about the evil spirits and him telling them not to tell the people he was the Son of God. I just thought about it a different way than I have in the past, and I realized part of the reason that he said that is because everything he was doing was as the Son of Man, and he didn't want to confuse that. He wanted people to see that what he was doing as a man. And I think that's really profound and fits into this overall story. Well, we want to go on now with these thoughts about the Sabbath, and we want to get into some of these deeper issues. And the theme for tonight's presentation has to do with this issue of authority and issues of personal conscience as it relates to the Sabbath. And the thing is about this is it's not just about the Sabbath. The Sabbath is the central issue because it was a real hot button, right? But Messiah was using this as a way to show us something bigger. And it's something that really affects all of us, not just so far as the Sabbath, but using that as an example of the whole picture. So let's look at the Sabbath now. Who has authority over the Sabbath? That's the real question that we're looking at here in these verses in Mark. That is the real question. And obviously, as you read the story, you get the picture that Messiah thinks differently than the Pharisees think on this issue of authority. So we have the story here and how it begins. It's telling us about Yeshua and his disciples going through the grain fields on the Sabbath day. And then the disciples began to pluck the ears of grain and to eat them. Now, I think that's interesting because these disciples, they were hungry. They just felt free to do what they needed to do. You know, if Yeshua was some kind of a religious control freak, they wouldn't have done that, right? They would have been sure, if they did this at all, they would ask him first, because the Sabbath is such an important issue. But instead, they just felt free, since they were hungry, to eat. And I think this is something that they had kind of assimilated from walking with Messiah, because he operated from his inner man, and he really taught them to operate as free people from their inner man in the image of God. And this is something really that we want to incorporate in our own lives and grow in, because this is really what this story is about. Well, the Pharisees saw all this, and of course, they did not get any of that. They said, "Behold, why do they do that which is not legal on the Sabbath day?" So you know who these guys are? Have you ever gone down to the DMV and you've got 7 pieces of identification, and they say, "Yeah, but you don't have this piece of identification." So they don't accept anything you give them, even though you have all the rest of it. That's these Pharisees. They're bureaucrats, right? They don't care about the people. What they care about is all the details and feeling powerful. Being able to send you home without your license because you had 7 pieces but not 8 pieces makes them feel powerful. Now, of course, this isn't all the people at the DMV, right? There's helpful people there too. But you know the kind of people I'm talking about who tend to gravitate into these bureaucratic kind of jobs where they can try to control people's lives. This is the Pharisees. It's not legal to do that. That's what the Sabbath is about to them. You have to keep all the rules. That's the Sabbath in their mind. And it tells you the whole story when they say the word legal, because they're legal beagles. That's their thing. Not legal. This is all about religious authority to the Pharisees. You see, they're looking at Messiah and they're seeing this happen. And they're thinking, "Oh, you know what? He and his men, they don't respect the authority of the Pharisees. Somebody's got to do something about that." Well, about this particular issue, the Jewish New Testament commentary tells us that the Pharisees had 39 categories of work that were prohibited on the Sabbath. Now, where do they get those? It mentions here that those were prohibited on Shabbat while the tabernacle was being built. So apparently they extrapolated from these instructions while the tabernacle was being built and made this list of these different kinds of work that could not be done. Now, among these was reaping and threshing. And so in the bean counter's mind, picking a head of grain while you're walking through the field is reaping. And moving around in your finger to get the husk off of it so you can eat it, why, that's threshing. Hey, that's the rules. I didn't make the rules. Those are the rules. I hate this. Don't you hate that mindset? You know, it makes you want to scream, doesn't it? That's where their head was at. Why did they love these rules so much? Because they got to tell people what to do. That's the reason. They loved that. So this was what their argument was really all about. In making this list of things, of kinds of work, categories of work that are not allowed under any circumstances on the Sabbath, the Pharisees had broken a commandment, which is in Deuteronomy 4:2. You shall not add to the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yahweh your Elohim, which I command you. There is such a thing as spiritual authority. But spiritual authority does not give anybody the right to add to the commandments, nor to take away from the commandments. So, who's doing something that's not legal here? Isn't that always how it is? What you're looking at, friends, is the spirit of religion. I know what it is because I grew up under it. And it's the same thing you see. It's not just the Pharisees that are like this. And you have people like this in Christian churches. You have Christian groups that really bring this to the max. You certainly have seen this in Muslim groups, many other kinds of religious groups. How about Heaven's Gate, the cult, or the people that went down to South America and all drank the Kool-Aid? It's all this kind of mindset. It's this heavy religious authority oppression that we're talking about. Now, this is just the flavor of a bigger thing, which, you see it all the time. And in our world, we are experiencing way too much of this. Okay, you get it from the government, some governments more than others. You get it even from business, corporations, schools. We had a fire here in our area, and money was sent from the federal government to help the local people, and it was sent to a local church, and it was a lot of money. And you know how they gave that money out? A lot of bureaucratic rules. Very, very similar to what would happen under the government. People had to fill out all kinds of paperwork. They're without a house, okay? Their place was just burned down. They got to go through all this bureaucracy and wait to get a little help. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. It's very obvious sometimes when people need help. And all of this bureaucracy and false authority and rules should not stand in the way when there's a means to help people. Whoa. It's a personal thing. Part of it, of course, is just how they do things. But the other part of it, for the people that get involved in this, that have control of those funds, have control of this authority, to them, it's like a personal thing, and it's like a drug. And sometimes they get really just drunk with this stuff. Well, Yeshua reminded these guys about David trying to reach through to some kind of reason, right? Basically, pointed out David had need. He was hungry. He had other people with him that were hungry. This overrode the normal situation. They couldn't understand that because they had a rule. And then he told them the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Is that really true? Don't we keep the Sabbath because Yahweh likes to see us keep lots of traditions and rules and make sure we get them all just right? Isn't that why we keep the Sabbath? kind of like a little hamster in a wheel, just doing this to make Yahweh feel happy just watching us? That's the religious mindset, and it's stupid. Yahweh doesn't do anything without a purpose. He didn't give us Sabbath because he needs one. He gave us the Sabbath because we need the Sabbath. We need it. Now, it is a commandment. It is a commandment for us to keep the Sabbath. Why? If he did it for man, why does he then command us to do it? Because most of the time we're not smart enough to do what we need to do ourselves. He has to tell us we need it. We might think, well, I don't really need to do that at the end of every 7 days. Once a year might be enough because I want to do my business and make a lot of money or whatever else I want to do. So he gave us a command. Hey, this one day is different from the rest of the days. You need to observe this day. And when the people had come out of Egypt and they were building the tabernacle, and Yahweh was trying to get them to keep the Sabbath, they didn't get it. So he had to be kind of severe with them to make them keep the Sabbath. Why did that happen? It's the same problem a lot of us have. They had a slave mentality, and he was trying to break it. Do you think that they kept the Sabbath while they were in Egypt? I'm thinking no. I'm thinking even if they wanted to keep the Sabbath, the Egyptian taskmasters had other ideas. Don't you think? And they got in that mental mindset of slaves. And they felt like if they didn't do the things they were supposed to do, if they didn't take care of themselves, nobody else would, and something bad would happen. So they were literally afraid of keeping the Sabbath. That's what it boils down to. And so Yahweh said, no, you keep the Sabbath and I'll take care of you. It'll be all right. Some of them just weren't willing to do that because they were so trapped in the brain chains that they couldn't stop for a day and give Yahweh a chance. He knew if they would do that if they lived in that for a little while, they'd start to catch on of what the Sabbath is about. And you know what? The same thing is true of people today. Because people today have the same slave mentality, and they want to go on with their same stuff and even sometimes feel afraid not to be doing that every day, every day, every day. And what is happening as they're doing that? They're being dehumanized. That's what's happening to them. They're losing touch with that place inside where they actually house the very image of God. And they're losing something. Something they need, something that those around them need. Their spiritual life is diminished. But on the Sabbath, if they just will recharge, they have time. Yahweh has set that time for them to be with him. And as they rest from their normal work, and they rest from the cares of the world and they focus on Him, what happens? A lot of that stuff just starts to burn away. They're reinvigorated in their spirit. They're reconnected with the other people in their family and their spiritual community. And all of this makes for good, healthy growth in the freedom that we have as the children of Elohim. And that's what the Sabbath is about. It's not about lighting candles. It's not about keeping rules. It's not about how far you can walk. It's not about whether you can eat this or that, or whether you can turn a light switch on or off. It's not about that. It's about resting from the things of the world and from your own interests and spending some time with Yahweh and getting reinvigorated in your faith, in your spirit. Now, you need that. Do you need to eat every day? Well, you can go without eating for quite a while, but it's going to catch up with you. The Sabbath is just like that. You can skip it, but if you do, it will catch up with you, and it will have hazardous results on your spirit. So the Sabbath is not about just keeping rules. It's about something else. It's about the two great commandments. Love the Lord your God with your whole heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. That's what the Sabbath is really about. So the Sabbath was indeed made for man, something we need. We were not made for the Sabbath, that is, to do certain rituals in order to somehow appease the Sabbath. That's not what it's about. Well, then he says, therefore, the Son of Man is master even of the Sabbath. So what is he saying when he says the Son of Man is master even of the Sabbath? You know what's so cool about this statement? It has two meanings. The Son of Man is a title. It is a title in the Scriptures for the Messiah. But it's also just a phrase that means a person, a son of Adam, meaning that we've got something from Adam, and we are the master of the Sabbath. You know, it's kind of interesting that even some of the rabbis came to understand this. This is also from the Jewish New Testament commentary. There's a passage in the Talmud where one of the rabbis says, "For Shabbat is holy unto you." That is, it is committed into your hands, not you into its hands. Very, very important. There are other passages like this. And then it continues on, it says, "It may be, therefore, that Yeshua's comment in Mark 2:28, that the Son of Man is Lord of Shabbat, does not refer only to himself, but to everyone, since Hebrew Ben Adam, literally the Son of Man, can mean simply a man or a person with no messianic overtone. People control Shabbat and not the other way around." See, I believe this is connected with Yeshua telling those demons, don't tell them I'm the Son of God. Because I think what he was doing at this whole point in his ministry is he was trying to show us the radical authority that we have in the earth through Yeshua Messiah as human beings. You know, he operated in freedom as a man. in these things that he did. It wasn't him that picked the grain. His disciples did it, right? They were operating in freedom on the Sabbath. This is what he was teaching. This is what he was showing people, is how to be a fully actuated spiritual person. That's what he was doing. So he's telling us the same message that the scriptures command in Exodus 31:14. You shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is holy to you. Holy here, according to Strong's, means set apart from the rest for a special function. So, a lot of times we see the word holy and we think, okay, that means religious. No, it doesn't mean religious. Do you know sometimes it uses the same word for a prostitute? Doesn't mean religious. It means set apart. Something special. Something that has a special reason. Set apart to you, it says. A lot of times in some of the commandments, Yahweh says certain things are set apart to him. Here it doesn't say it's set apart to him. He doesn't say the Sabbath is set apart to me. Doesn't say that. He says the Sabbath is set apart to you. Is that not exactly what Yeshua Messiah was trying to tell us? That the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath? Why didn't the Pharisees get that? It's right there. So, what we're seeing as we look at this, what Yeshua is trying to tell us about the Sabbath is that it's an opportunity. The Sabbath is an opportunity that he has given us, that is a valuable resource for us, something we need. Just like he's given us food, given us water, given us air to breathe, he's given us the Sabbath because it's something we need. But it's up to us to manage this gift. So just like we have these other things he's given us, and we need to be stewards of these things in our life, the same thing is true of the Sabbath. It's a valuable resource, and we need to manage it. And a lot of people don't value the Sabbath. And excuse me for saying this, but it's because they're ignorant. They don't understand how important the Sabbath is to their spiritual life. Now, this is for a number of different reasons. It may be because they've had some poor religious teaching that has caused them not to value the Sabbath. It may be because they're selfish people and they just really don't want to give that time to Yahweh, and they'd rather just pursue their own interests. A lot of people like that. You know what? Some of the Israelites were like that. Sometimes it's some of Yahweh's people that have these wrong attitudes. But we can change our attitudes. We need to see that the Sabbath is something that holds out amazing benefits for us. And as we look at Yeshua Messiah and the things he did on the Sabbath, we can start to understand these benefits. If we ignore the Sabbath, we're missing out on something. If we keep it the way Messiah is showing us, it leads to freedom. in our life. You know, it changes you if you will keep the Sabbath, because you start to be empowered in your inner man to be the kind of person that you're meant to be. You're meant to be a free person. That's such an amazing thing. You know, people today don't really understand very much about freedom. They think it's the right to vote or something. That's not what freedom's about. Freedom is about the image of God within your own character. And by virtue of nothing more than the fact that you are a human being, you have a right to manifest the character of God in the earth, and nobody can make a rule to stop you. You have liberty. There's no government that can take that from you. There is no religion that can take that from you. Bars in a cell cannot take your freedom from you. It belongs to you as your birthright as a human being, as a son of Adam or a daughter of Adam. When you understand that you have this liberty, you have this authority, and you walk in this in the world, how will you operate? How will you behave? Will you be cowed by all of these voices telling you what to do? Or will you be like Yeshua Messiah? Can you picture that day in the synagogue with the man with a withered hand? Yeshua was not intimidated by the power of these Pharisees. He was motivated from within to do the right thing, but not just to do the right thing, to model the right thing. Isn't that the loving thing to do when you know something that other people don't know? To model that so that other people can actually see it. You know, that's what he did. When he healed that man, he was showing all of us what it really means to be a free person and not to be dominated by mindless, stupid rules, by authority that's not real authority. You know, over the centuries, what has been happening is those who would seek to dominate God's people have continued to make encroachments upon your personal liberty, your authority to be a child of God. And they keep taking away from Yahweh's people the right to be a person. And just like those Pharisees making that list of what you can and cannot do, hey, we've got lists all over the place telling us what we can or cannot do. And we're also told that if you don't keep all that stuff, you're not a good citizen. It's not legal. The only thing is, most of those rules aren't anything to do with actual law. It's all just stuff you're expected to do. Well, you know what? We do have certain social responsibilities. We do have certain legal responsibilities, and that's legitimate. But this has been pushed out there to such a degree that it actually hampers children of God from being free people and expressing the image of God in the world. If Messiah was here right now and he was facing that, do you have any doubt what he would do? He would just do the right thing, wouldn't he? That's what he did. He was fearless in the face of the world. He was motivated by what was right from within his heart and his spirit. And that's what he modeled. This is what it means to be a disciple of Yeshua Messiah, is to see that heart of his and to allow our own heart and spirit to be transformed into moving and living in that same way. And that's really what he was trying to show us through these lessons about the Sabbath, that we need to let this happen in our life. Now, friends, to do this is a growing experience. It's a lifetime experience. There's so much to come to grips with. There's so much that we have to deal with to truly allow ourselves to be expressed. And the truth is, the biggest obstacle we have to that is ourselves. Because we have fears. We have insecurities. You know, we have sin. We have the world. We have the devil, all opposing us from being able to do the thing that we see Yeshua Messiah doing in these verses. Simply expressing that authority of a human being in the world. So it is, without question, a challenge. But friends, it's a challenge we must meet. All the more so because we are Israel. Just as Yeshua Messiah stepped up and not only spoke the truth, but lived it so everybody can see it. This is the role of Israel in the world. We are called to be his light in this world, his glory in this world. There will be a people who will step up to this level I'm talking about and truly operate as free men and women in Yeshua Messiah. The scriptures tell us who they will be. They will be the remnant of Israel. And they will show the way to every righteous-hearted person in the world. And they will stand and look evil authority in the eye and say, you will not cross this line. What we have been given is something sacred. It will not be stamped out. It will not be controlled. It will not be stopped. It is the will of your Creator that you grow into everything He means you to be, and He means you to be something great. Let that happen in your life. Believe in Yeshua Messiah. Follow His example. That's the big message. You know, after telling us about all this, it tells us about the multitude scattered all over that territory. And when they heard these things, they all came to Messiah. When people manifest the image of God in the world, it is like a light. And righteous-hearted people are drawn to it like a flame. The assembly of believers is pictured in Scripture as a menorah. Why? Because we are meant to be that kind of light. We can do it if we walk as he walked, as free men and women. So the question, who has authority over the Sabbath? The answer is clear. You do.
You have been listening to Hebraic Insights in the Gospels. Further teachings and study materials on the Sabbath, Holy Time, and the original calendar of the Bible, the example that Messiah set for us as the Son of Man, the Torah, following Messiah's example as the son or daughter of Adam, living in the image of God, and Israel as the light of the world, along with many other related topics, can be found at our membership site, Zion Tabernacle. Sign up is free. Just go to zion.net. That's TSIYON.NET. New programs on the Gospels will be airing every Sabbath on Zion Road Radio. Tune in next Shabbat to learn more from Hebraic Insights in the Gospels. Shabbat Shalom!
Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths.
House of Israel, weep for joy. I brought you out of the nations.
Would you like to hear more of Eliyahu's teachings? Do you have a question or prayer request and would like to get in touch with one of our volunteers for help? Or do you just want to know more about Eliyahu Ben David and Zion Ministry? Visit our website at zion.org, where you can listen to more teachings from Eliyahu Ben David straight from the homepage of our website. Check out our books, DVDs, internet videos, and other social media outlets. Learn more about Eliyahu and the Zion team on the About page. See what our ministry's mission is on the Remnant Vision page. Send a question or prayer request from our Contact Us page. Or click Join Us in the menu bar to learn about our community site, Zion Tabernacle. To find out more about Zion Ministry, go to zion.org. That's zion.org, spelled TSIYON.org.